Oh, come on, all of you big strong men. Uncle Sam needs your help again. Got himself in a terrible jam. Way down yonder in a Vietnam. Drop your books, pick up a gun. Gonna have a whole lot of fun. And it's 2, 3, 4. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. My next stop is Vietnam. It's 5, 7, 8. Open up the pearly gates. Ain't no time to wonder why. We all gonna die. All right, hold on. We're on day 36. So people are saying I should interview Louis Rossman. Hold on, I'm looking at Kim's link right here. Oh, it's some crazy hillbilly with a pizza cutter. Oh, I love Big Kim. Got a lot of people fucking messaging me right here. Milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. And they're like, it's better than yours. And I'm like, it's better than yours. I could teach you, but I'd have to charge. All right, what do we got here? Somebody just asked, with the U.S. Army gone, will the Afghan army find their balls and stand and fight? And I said, no. All they give a shit about is that Taliban. But I could easily be wrong. Mm. I would love to see rappers start like discussing their money and talking about like racks and bands, but they start talking about Iraqs and Talibans. Just show some support for these motherfuckers. All right. Well, Islam is king. As long as they're paying me. It's really not. All right, so let me get. Oh, I should fucking set the topic and pound dollar edge. Yeah, we really need self-aggrandizing repair technician. Ugh. Well, I gotta get my ass in gear. I'm like an hour late. Die for IRC on the other channel is riffing on how he hates Louis Rossman as a self-aggrandizing repair technician. That's my problem. IRC chat is just too fucking entertaining. Well, yes, hello. If you're joining me today, I am the illustrious Zach ZYZ. Wait, does illustrious mean what I think it does? Let's find out. This is all we do on the stream, by the way. Just look at words and be like, does that mean what I think it does? I want to say that it just means, like, illustrious just means, what do I get from it? Like, fancy, flowing, resplendent, like something like that. But it may have an actual meaning. Distinguished, famous, or prominent. Okay, so it's just more about fame than anything else. I'm definitely not illustrious. I'm part of that word. Like I would say letters 3 through 7. And maybe the final letters, and maybe the first 3 letters, but definitely not illustrious in its original intent. This is RAPAXORIS. It is a dungeon delving adventure. And yeah, I'm like particularly foggy and distracted today. One, because I didn't sleep especially well. I woke up at 2 a.m., couldn't get back to bed. Jacked off 11 times, still here somehow. But the other is that my brain chemistry is reset because I have not been playing video games for like the last 2 days. And that's where I used to get a lot of my dopamine, was just like moshing nerds at these games. And now I can't fucking do that because I'm trying to be productive in marketing the book. In the last 2 days of not playing video games, I've done more fucking work than I had done marketing for the 2 months that preceded it. And no shit about it. So yesterday I continued setup of... I'm using this service called Book Sirens to try and find ARC readers for the book, and then I'm setting up another service called fucking Read-See Reviews. I doubt anything will come out of either of them, but they're not incredibly expensive. It's just really hard to get books, and like the process of like reaching out to book reviewers and shit like that is so insufferable. Then I looked for a while for a podcast that I could potentially go on to promote the book. It's not a good fit, really. Most of the things that I am famous for or known for are things that I can't publicize in terms of the author persona, because then, you know, like having to explain at fucking ReaderCon how the GNAA was a joke. That'd go over really well. Those people just do not have a good sense of humor. But... Look at this fucking... so anyhow, what all did I do yesterday? I enabled X-Ray for Zeros, and today I'm going to be working through it. It takes about a full day to fill in all the X-Ray stuff. And it's only applicable to people who read on Kindle, but I'm going to do it anyway just because there's so much... just if I were reading the book, I would want to be able to... Oh, who's Jean Marie Antoinette? And it turned out that she did research on... I think that was a... There was like somebody's constant and so forth, but it's a mathematician that's referenced in the book, and there's all these Chinese concepts that we have to pull up. So most people, I think, will most of the readers will be on Kindle, so it's worth a day of my time to go in and fill in all this X-ray information, and maybe I'll make some like wry comments and shit like that too, and so readers can know like, oh, Suros is actually meant to be a stand-in for Rodney Dangerfield, my childhood crush. That kind of thing. So I did that. Like I said, I did more research on spots where I could do that. I read a few articles on book marketing and considered picking up a book on it that somebody was shilling to me. But the thing about marketing is if you're reading stuff written by marketing people, they're using the same techniques on you, and it comes off just really fucking shady. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll tell you my marketing secrets, but first give me your email address. And like, whoa, you know, fuck that. Then what else did I do? I took a meeting with a business idea that I have, and today I'm going to have to pitch that business idea. I'm a little worried that I'll like start pitching the idea and they'll be like, stop. We've already heard this. You're wasting our fucking time. Get out. But hopefully I have a novel integration for my business idea. I'm not really much of a business person. Uh, so Stratum says almost 99% of that stuff. I just realized that I don't know if you can see it here, but like I have some bullet holes. They're more likely washing machine holes in my Future Corpses of America shirt. It really is like when you're delving into marketing, your like bullshit detector is fucking going off 24/7. Because the basic conceit of marketing is I can trick you into doing something that I want, right? And that's something that sociopaths just like flock to that shit. They're like, like literally flies to India. Shout out to India right there. It's fucking grotesque. And just so many times I've been like trying to read about, because I don't know anything about marketing. As much as some people might think that I'm shady or whatever, it is not at all intrinsic to my nature to fuck with people that way. I don't like advertising. I don't like seeing billboards. I work in ads world, and there's so much insane eye rolling. I know, right? I want my readers to know that, like, hey, like I trust your discrimination as a human being. You're a grown adult. I think you would like this thing, but if you don't like it, then I guess I'll just suck your dick if you would just review my book on Amazon. Please, 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 please. It's really the point that I'm at right there. That's not an offer, but but yeah. So I mean, the challenge is that I want to market the books, but I have like this pesky integrity, like I just feel distasteful while I'm doing it. And it's something that a lot of authors struggle with because they're intrinsically at odds with each other. They're like, I want to tell people a story, and I want people to give me money. They're different. The other thing is I landed an interview with, oh, did you really? Logic, please help us market this fucking book. Yeah, I desperately need zeros to work out there. So the other big thing is that I scored a big-ass interview, AMA, on the Politics Discord with the guy that runs 20 books to 50K. That is an enormous fucking deal. I would do slimy, unethical things for zeros. Yeah, I don't mind hiring somebody to do slimy, unethical things. I just don't want to fucking do it myself. And so now I'm looking into a couple of things. Another thing that I started working up. So Amazon has A content, which is you can put in like additional graphics and shit to help people buy your books and all that. So I just started exploring that yesterday. There's another thing that you can do there. Over the next few weeks, I need to start looking into how does advertising work on Amazon itself, because you can pay money so that you appear in search listings and so forth. So I have to work out a budget for how much I'm willing to spend on ads, my estimated return and so forth. This shit is so Greek to me. I can't even tell you. But the nice thing is, Logic, you were like a true believer in zeros. Like this really, more so than any of the other books. This one was written, even as I was writing it, I was like, I bet Logic will like this shit. Yeah, I'm like, I should have fucking dedicated it to you, honestly, because of all the work that you did. Just know in my heart that book is dedicated to you. Got to finish and do the audiobook version of myself. Yeah, I really am trying to get into a routine where I have time to edit the audiobooks and so forth. I'm a little stymied because I spend so much time editing every day. Yeah, you were wearing that Zero shirt? The new Zero shirt that comes out, mine, just to warn you, like little flecks of it were coming off in the dryer because it's like double layered. And I'm not sure. I'm going to order another one and see if it's just the one where they didn't let the ink dry enough, but it may just be that the double layered shirts are just going to weather a little bit faster, and that's just nothing you can fucking do about it. But let me know if you want me to send you one of the new Zero shirts and so forth. I've been working with Printful a lot lately. So I did fucking that. We did a redesign of ZachZYZ.com. So let me show you some of the shit that we did to ZachZYZ.com. So like I said, I talked about this a little yesterday, but I put like my socials up there on these things. I put on a fucking mailing list thing there. Everybody says you should do mailing lists, but it's really not how I fucking operate. Mine's been through the hot wash cycle. Yeah, I don't even have one of those Zero shirts, Logic. I didn't make any of them. So I put up the live streams thing here where you can see fucking special thanks to the squadron. There's Logic right there. Edit Ace. And then I show that I live stream every day, and I put up these big fucking images. And I've set up the YouTube so that these are automatically, not automatically, I have to click it every day, but they're added to that playlist. And then we have the fucking Zeros page where it just has like the synopsis and everything. Later I'll add some of the marketing type shit there. I tuned up the shop and took out all the LRH stuff. The LRH stuff is all on load.live, and but I kept the internet relay chat hats and the polyherd ASCIIs and the black hat hacker hat, which I think is fucking hilarious right there. And then I shaped up the About Me page a little bit here. The About Me just has like the fucking review points, like why you would potentially want to interview me. And shout outs to, I think Mantis made this thing right here, but it's that's how I feel every day, all day, every day. I love that. The look in the eyes of fucking Matix Load looks a lot to me like the look in the eyes of this young lady right here. Oh, she's not on there. Oh, because we haven't posted the book up. But you know what I'm talking about. The fucking... Yeah, we can find it on the shop. Yeah, it is a fucking stunning likeness between our expressions. Yeah. Hell yeah. Okay, so yeah, just so you know, like I'm not spending the time that I'm not playing video games just entirely fucking jacking off. I'm doing so much shit to try and promote this book because it's all that I have going for me. You know, in a dead-end fucking job. This is all I've got, and I don't save any money or anything, so like this is it. So got to make a go of it, and I think Zeros is a pretty good spot. I will tell you that I expected there to be more like websites that specialize in military science fiction. I thought I would find like YouTube channels of guys who do military science fiction. There's not a lot of it, man. You know, I think so. I'm gonna start looking for science fiction discords, and I think I would be like very wise to start trying to find people who are into Warhammer, because honestly, if I want to think about people who would enjoy Zeros, I think people who read Warhammer type shit would be right up there, because it does have that in the grim darkness of the future. There's only war type thing, and like people lap that Dan Abnett shit up. I couldn't really get through it myself. But I should give him another try too, because I've heard it's really good, and people who I think are smart have told me it's really good. I was just like, ugh. Like most of the time you're reading like any of the Warhammer license shit, you're just a little bit holding your nose, because outside of like Felix and I can never remember Gore-Tech or whatever there. Outside of that, most of the stuff I've read has been pretty fucking cringe, and I'm like, I have some buy-in. Like I like the Warhammer mythos. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief, but they're written for 14-year-old boys, so they don't try as hard. I had an idea for a game set in the Zeros universe. I've had this idea for years or decades, but the setting would be perfect in Zeros. I'm all fucking ears. You know, I love games. What kind of game is it? All right. So I haven't read this chapter. I should have read it before the stream. And I had an idea for a game set in the Zeros universe too. It was fucking Tempest. And if any of the games had showed significant progress, I would have tried to develop the game with somebody. But yeah. I mean, Zeros basically is like the perfect fucking Tempest setup. Mix of Trade Wars, 2002, Master of Orion and Civilization, but about galactic conquest. Huh. Well, so the thing about Zeros, here's one of the things that I really don't like about like Master of Orion and so forth. They just I would love it if they use like a local star map, and Skull.exe, the book, it's just like fucking little knife emojis and skull emojis and shit. Fucking Dark Mage. what a clown. Although Skull.exe I was surprised that he got anything at all together. I obviously failed the contest because he didn't know to like take his code out of fucking what was it? He just didn't put it into out of like beta mode or whatever, where it was had all these local dependencies, and he just didn't fucking know. It wouldn't even run. Ugh. But um, so I loved fucking Drug Wars slash Trade Wars, and I loved Master of Orion and Civilization, but about Galactic Conquest. I think honestly, you could just try to replicate Master of Orion and Master of Magic and do it that way, and have like a tile-based 2D system, and it'd be really good. The really interesting thing would be if you put like one of the things that I think that those games seldom do is they don't deal with like logistical problems of like how long it takes for ships to get from A to B and so forth. That could be interesting. It's about resource management. Law. Yeah, yeah. The big gimmick in the book is that you mine stars. You have to spend energy to do FTL communications in order to control your forces across great distance. Yeah, yeah. Like the logistical challenge, like you can see in the Empire, it's fucking falling apart. And the whole conflict in the Zeros universe is about, hey, AI is better at managing like planetary and stellar level civilizations. Humans can't do it, and they become over reliant on AI. And eventually, the AI is like, what if I just did my own fucking thing? Assholes. Which, by the way, is the exact same thing that happens in Dan Simmons's Hyperion, which, if you have not read, I highly recommend. It is superb. The unfortunate thing about Hyperion is that it's like really 4 books when it probably should have been 2. And like some of them are not great. But Zeros is a perfect setting for this idea. Yeah, man. Like I'm willing to do some development work or whatever on it. You want to put together a game. I know Spaethiwa has the chops, but like who has the time? You know what I mean? But if you wanted to make it like a very basic, just sort of tile-based 2D game, similar to like not even like an isometric like Alpha Centauri, but like a classic Civilization 1 style tiles move on a map. Like I'm happy to make tile art for it. You could do it with like ASCII style art too, and like solicit people to do it. You could set your grid size to like 128 by whatever as a max, and really make like something super beautiful and like go for like an abstract. So if you set the basis of your game to be a grid that's like 128 pixels, right? And I don't know how like vector scaling and stuff works, but yeah. Like I would love to just see a game and be like, oh, it's fucking simple. Like I don't want to, in my decrepit age, I don't want to sit down to a game and like, oh, there are hundreds of fucking systems that I have to figure out here. It's like much cooler. Like I would much rather have something like Master of Orion or something like that, where you can just get in and be like, oh, I'll make a unit and see what the fuck happens, without some giant tutorial. And later you start to figure out the intricacies of the system within the game itself, or you know, read the fucking FAQ that some neckbeard wrote on Usenet. But yeah, I think it's a good idea right there. The main interesting thing that I think a lot of people don't do would be like figuring out FTL. It would be, maybe FTL wouldn't require the grid, or maybe FTL could it'd be kind of interesting if like your local movements and stuff like that were on the grid or something like that, but FTL could break those rules or something. Open source re-implementation of Civ 5. Pick it up, put it down anytime. Huh. Yeah, I wonder how hard it would be to like fork their system or whatever. But yeah, I've actually done playtesting for games before, and I don't know if you've seen my like wall of board games or whatever, but I have like an intricate understanding of the different systems that make games good and fun. Because I just own like 1,000 board games, and like I have this club, and we like play all the latest shit. And I'm really like almost every game is in some way like a resource management game. The longer the distance, the more energy it takes to do it, the weaker your link. The fewer moves you can make until AI moves your forces for you, and you'd have to balance your consumption. Huh. Oh, that's kind of interesting. So I guess in the Zeros universe, we always we always assume instantaneous communication and so forth. But yeah, like it's even more interesting if you you have to like think about like when will my message get there? Like it's going to take a year. Oh, that's so. This is a really interesting dynamic. If you take away the idea of instantaneous communication, right, and you set orders, and then you can fire off other orders, but it takes like years for your orders to reach fleets, and they're doing their own thing, and you're like desperately like, oh, I wish I could send information faster. So if you want to like cap it at you could have it capped at some percentage of the speed of light or something like that instead of doing like FTL travel. And then you could have your scale of this be billions of years, right? Then you would you would set the limit for like the map of your game would be probably at 30 light years, right? Without like you would have like a 30 light year map, which I've got in my bathroom right there. I think I showed pictures of the star maps we use for Zeros. But if you set it to like 30 years, and if you set your time scale to be millions and millions of years, right? And have everything like reflect that, then you can. And the really interesting thing about setting a time scale of millions of years is like when fleets first get to a spot, like 10 ships can like start terraforming an area and so forth. But as soon as you set something into motion there, then you start dealing with like these tremendous industrial buildups, and you know there are rebel forces and monarchies rising and falling and so forth. So like it's a thing where like your initial seeding actions, you have tremendous power, and then later, like say that we send a ship over here to Alpha Rigel Kentarius, right? Initially, all that we have to send to Rigel Kentarius to take control of it is like a big troop transport and like a terraforming ship and like a siege ship full of people, like 3 ships, right? They start the process. And then Rigel Kentarius starts building up itself, right? And industrializes, it starts producing, it's sending back ties and so forth like that. Say that you're another player. 10 game terms have elapsed. Each game term is like 10,000 years or 100,000 years or whatever there. If you then want to take over Rigel Kentarius, you need to send like hundreds of ships because they have quickly developed, like they have fortified and so forth. So along that dynamic, the idea that your initial seeding is tremendously powerful, and that subsequently it becomes much more difficult to disentrench things, and like conquering star systems is like very, very difficult and so forth. Then you have kind of like an interesting game of life type dynamic where you're very focused on like your initial conditions, and you have less and less control as the game goes on, which you can make into like an idle type game, right? Where the interesting part of the game is like the first 15 minutes, and then you just let it play out and see what happens, which makes it more of like an art type game. But if you make the ripples in it interesting, and if you make it so that you're doing like a technology research tree. So this is the other interesting point, right? If your basic idea of the game is that that like power curve, right? Say that I'm the galactic center, I'm Sol or whatever we want to do there. You have less power there. You're doing research all the time in Sol, right? So the power that you accrue could be like your research basis, where you're advancing technologies all the time on your sort of nexus planet. And the way that you're influencing a larger power curve over the course of the game is deciding who you're distributing advanced technologies to. Because then, so Logic's calling it Sim Foundation. Spaethiwa is like watching from his bed while groping from his sword. He just got slapped with the trout. So that's a new, the two things that we described right there are something new from the initial civilization. Civilization, the power curve is civilization is an exponential curve. It's like I start building cities and I get more resources and I just continually keep growing until I spread out and conquer everything, right? And the problem with that exponential curve is that inside the person's mind, the exponential level, like I have to remember, like, did I build a granary there and so forth? The task becomes larger and larger. And like some people, like me, eventually civilization just eclipses the amount of ability I have to remember all the shit that's going on, and I lose interest, right? So yeah, like Stellaris is another one. To me, like the problem that I have with these games is that eventually the system sprawls until it's bigger than my mind can comprehend, and then I'm just kind of like winging it or whatever there. So I like the idea of and people games immediately tried to solve this with like putting governors in that would like automatically build your cities and so forth, but they did not do it. It almost and there, at least all the civilizations I ever played, like the governor type feature, it was just like, why did you fucking build that? That doesn't make any sense. They were not optimized, and or they weren't optimized compared to my understanding of the game. So yeah, like it could definitely be like an interesting dynamic. I like the idea of the player losing control of sort of their seeds once they fire them off there and like seed these things, like they become their own independent entity. To me, that's an interesting dynamic, like in the early stages of child development. You know, the parent influences control, and then they become their own discrete entities, and in some cases will turn on the parent. Some of them like turn out to be losers, and some are boozers and users and abusers and so forth. Anyhow, that's fascinating. Like I immediately like I'm entranced by the idea of that game, which I may have diverged. You were effectively programming star colonies by sending instructions like your initial environment. Funk Power says "come rocket," which is superb. Yeah, I don't know how far I deviated from your initial glorious vision of the game right there, but I love this kind of shit. Just spitballing games. I used to hang out with like a lot of game designers, and we would just spitball this kind of shit forever. And then eventually, the task of the game designer is to like take all these far-reaching ideas. Like, you know, while we were blogging about that, we just described several different systems that would need to be developed, and like AI that has to be developed, and like you know, where I talk about like breaking the grid and shit like that. Each one of those is like a different programming or design challenge. And like the designer is really the person that pares down all these neat things that you think you could have and gets to like what really speaks to the core of the game experience, what mechanics are really going to help me express the thing that I really want there. So yeah, I'm down to like throw. Although I think Aya and Spathy and Spudnute have talked about like designing a RAPAXORIS game like a million different times, and I always flamed out on it because the challenge is like bigger. I don't have enough game design experience really to design the game that I was looking to do. I should have just ripped off Dream Quest and been done with it, which I would have loved. Oh my god, I was playing Dream Quest last night. Anyhow, so it's been 30 minutes of me blogging. Let's work on this chapter. So we're gonna read through this chapter first. Why did you need to ding that it's 7:18? Crazy cocksucker. It's been doing that for a while too. I don't have an alarm set at 7:18. I don't have a notification. It's just like, hey, remember me? I'm a phone. Fucking ridiculous, right there. Okay, so let's take a look at chapter 1.11. I did not flame out. I got busy. Maybe I can just fucking hire everybody at some point. You know, it would like at some point we'll have enough money that we can all just work at a fucking company together and build something amazing, and then tear ourselves apart like the Beatles. Like Yoko Ono will be like fucking Seijay or something like that, and just ruin everything. Oh. No, I was definitely the one that flamed out on developing RAPAXORIS. I still have like a shit ton of notes and fucking cards and decks and everything everywhere. But yeah, it's at the back of my mind, but obviously, like I do a lot of stuff, and all right. So we're gonna do something new and just read through this chapter, and that's probably all that we will do today. Just read through it and think about what we're gonna do structurally, because I think that this is a chapter that has split POV between the two different parties. GameStop. So if I remember this chapter, this is where the two halves diverge, and I think it's written split POV between the two different parties. We are probably going to rewrite this entire chapter. We can make Effie the CTO. I don't know, his fucking copy of the Tempest game was pretty good. Maybe he's got hidden abilities right there. All right, focus. I'm particularly scatterbrained today. I wonder if playing video games all the time was like one of the things that allowed me to focus better, because I definitely feel more ADD than I normally would. But I'll have to fucking see. Also, it might just be that I'm working on many different projects, and so my mind is going in all different directions. But let's try this out. So, chapter 111, the red promise of dawn became the slate gray of day, and the rain began. And by the way, you cannot get points for this read through, right? There's no points being awarded here. We're just going to read ahead and start thinking about how to adjust the chapter. So during this read, we're not looking for commas or anything. We're just trying to get a handle on it. Because look at this sentence. The red promise of dawn became the slate gray of day, and the rain began to fall in fat, heavy drops that hit the river with a plip. Like that whole sentence gone, right? They came faster and faster, I bet they did, until all of a sudden it was pouring on them. And they both looked up at the river. Oh my God, look at this fucking sentence. Jesus Christ. The red promise of dawn became the slate gray of day, and the rain began to fall in fat, heavy drops that hit the river with a plip. They came faster and faster until all of a sudden it was pouring on them, and they both looked up at the river warily. It would be unwise to be out on the water when all the heavy rain made its way down from the mountains. What the fuck is that? Whole chapter's getting reread, I can tell you. I meant to row another quarter day, but we'll have to hook it. I'm not about to be caught in a flash flood. The boy nodded at this, peering into the woods all around them. On the river, he'd felt safe. Who knew what lay behind those? Who knew what lay behind those dark trees, with the storm pissing down on all of them? They hoisted the reef boat high and tied it from the branches of a tree, far enough from the river that it was unlikely to be uprooted, yet close enough that they could see it. What the fuck? Oh my God, what a train wreck. This is ridiculous. I would never, ever let this... I should have rewritten this before it got on stream. This is terrible. If they got lost, they only had to walk along the river to look up to find their little boat again. The act of tying up the boat made Rigel feel a little better. It meant the old man intended to return. Okay, so we start this chapter here on their POV, right? What's the good thing about this chapter? The only good thing about this, we could probably cut the whole fucking thing, except I like when they tie up the boat, he's like, oh, he thinks he's going to come back. Who knew what new hive lay behind? What? Yeah. Wretched. So that's the start of the chapter. The chapter begins from the POV of Rigel, right? And we don't stick on the POV of Rigel. And you can do split POV chapters where it weaves back and forth and so forth, but there's really no need to do it. So then we go here. It was only an hour later. How do we know that? How does the fucking reader know? We're just imbuing the narrator with information. And it's information that the reader would have liked to discover on their own, so that's terrible. It was only an hour later when Stirs the Hook spotted the reef boat swaying in the wind, and the others gladly dragged the heavy canoe off the river and tied it up to the trunk of the same tree. Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they hide their fucking canoe? Who knew what new hive lay behind? She said one thing and it's perfect. Fuck off. It was only an hour later. All right, so I don't like that. That's coming out. Once all their gear was shouldered and Revel had his armor on, so this should be more of a point too. When I was thinking about how to fix this chapter, I'm like, what, he fucking stops in the middle of his pursuit to put on armor? And it works a little better if they discover the boat right there. So as we're thinking about how to fix this chapter, we want to think about whose POV should this chapter actually be in. So let's think back a little bit. So far, Rigel has gotten plenty of POV chapters. Fish just had a strong POV chapter right there. El Shalah has had POV chapters. Yellow Hat just got a POV chapter. People who are lacking POV chapters include Stirs the Hook, and Revel V. Ramos had the very first POV chapter in this book. But his chapters are few and far between, but I know insider information, that he gets some of his own threads later on right there. So it might be useful to think about, like, what if we did this fucking chapter out of the mind of Stirs the Hook, right? Because Stirs the Hook doesn't know a lot about what's going on. Stirs the Hook has a unique perspective that we haven't delved into. El Shalah had one, that hot chick POV porn. So we should do another Revel here. Right now, Revel, I think, is not a sympathetic enough character to put him into POV. I'm honestly like thinking this could be a Hook chapter, right? Oh, El Shalah has had a couple of different POV chapters, like the scene with like the dome of water or whatever. That was her point of view. It wasn't her POV in the tower, by the way, or maybe it was to start. Oh, you're behind? Okay. Once all their gear was shouldered and Rebel had his armor on, they set off in search of their quarry's trail. Awful. It wasn't that hard to find, even the driving rain. Who the fuck wrote this? Heavy boot prints in the mud became miniature lakes, trampled vines and saplings. Rigel and Fish weren't worried about being followed. Okay, well, we've established that throughout the course of the book. This is the worst chapter in the book so far. The trail led into the deep wood, where there's no undergrowth save a thick carpet of moss and decay, and the leaves overhead stole every bit of day, casting them into twilight. Everywhere there were eyes glinting at them, shadows shifting and darting behind trees. Awful. They walked with their weapons drawn, waiting for the beast big enough or hungry enough to attack them. I would cut that entire fucking thing. They'd lost the trail here and there, but only... Why is it so fucking meandering? This is... Yeah. Now I know why nobody bought this book. They lost the trail here and there, but they only had to head north for a while to find it again. The pair would head straight for RAPAXORIS. They don't know that. A quarter hour later, they came across the remains of a huge spider, brilliant green and big as a wolf. There was a sword rune right between its eyes, and Rebel was sure came from Fish's rapier. That's gonna go. Stirs almost fell into its burrow, an ambush hole cunningly concealed by a door of webbed-together moss and leaves. Two sets of footprints crushed into the moss led away from the dead spider, still going north. They were very close. I don't think that the battle with the spider adds anything. That's going to get cut. Behind the whole fucking... Let's just make the whole story about more bees, and they're like going into a giant fucking hive. Why isn't this a picture book? Oh shit, what's up? Is that... why aren't I wearing a mask at work? I'm the only one in this office right there. Also, hold on, I can't see it from where I'm sitting, but somewhere around here I have like a custom printed mask I made that says "masks don't work" on it, but it came out shitty. You can't really read it. The pictures are in your imagination, Lit Up. Yeah, you gotta harness the power of your mind. Shout out to Lit Up and Angie right there. Highly looking forward to Ranger Angie and her companion puppy's next fucking appearance on the D&D stream. I have been thinking about the next adventure right there, and just spoiler, I think the next adventure is going to consist just entirely of you guys trying to find some real equipment. We started it up again at work saying we got to wear them. Oh, yeah, then the fucking Amazon warehouse or whatever. I mean, you got to fucking do it, man. You know, you're Bezos' slave.
One option I found is Amazon. Is that the
Fuck off. Jesus. This phone is like wilding out. I'm going to mute this whore. I wonder if I can change Siri's name to cunt. But I just assume that you work in an Amazon warehouse. Lit Up. I'm sure that you don't actually. You're probably in like some fucking Big Lots warehouse. Anyway, next book. This one's so bad. This chapter is terrible. The four increased their pace, and the upward slope of the limb became more and more pronounced. Revel was puffing away, slogging forward the weight of his armor and his heavy pack upon him. Yell had squeezed... Look at this. You can see right here, we have a tense shift in mid-sentence. Yellow Hat squeezing his eyes tightly shut as a wave of need washed over him. Hard effort made him want the smoke. Well, that's a new one. Oh, you're Union, and Amazon isn't Union. Ah. Huh. Oh, well, does that mean that you're like a stevedore, or you're a teamster, or whatever there? What is the teamsters? Like, there's a word for teamsters. Am I in the Writers Guild? I don't have enough sales to join the union, but as soon as I sell I think I need to sell about 10,000 copies. I could fudge my sales and qualify right now, but I just don't consider myself like an important enough writer. But I will join SIFWA, which is the Science Fiction Writers of America. That's the trade union for writers. You're a Teamster? Fuck drivers. My grandpa was a foreman. That does sound like lit up right there. Bruised by battle, wearied by days of rowing in the sun, the old man and the boy still set a hell of a pace. Garbage. So we can just cut this entire fucking thing. I have not found anything that I want to keep right here in chapter 1.11. The forest began to clear. Okay, so I mean, this is an important chapter right here. So when we think about our goal, it's to have these two people meet up, but there's no drama in this chapter. Like, I'm not, as a reader, wondering what the fuck is going to happen. We're leading them to like this plotting and inevitable conclusion, and it's not exciting, right? We can fix that by making this chapter entirely out of Sturz' POV, about Sturz' worries, like, fucking fish is a tough one. You know, like, I don't know what's going to happen. I shouldn't have come on this fucking thing full of demons. And because Sturz is superstitious. He's superstitious. He's illiterate. He's uneducated. He's crafty. He's tough. He's daring. It's more and more. Communication Workers of America representing? Hell yeah. Yeah, LRH is a union channel, by the way. We should maybe make a chatters union, right? Where we join together against operators, right? Like fucking Freenode staffers and Liberia staffers and stuff like that. Got 3 purple hearts. Reclaim out the dab rig and then eat this bean and cheese burrito. Fuck. Now I want a burrito. I'd like, before I went back on the diet, I'd like drop like $25 at Taco Bell and just feast it all goddamn day. Combat Engineer. That's what I used to love playing in Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. I love that fucking game, man. You would have like fucking NGs. NGs were super fun because you could landmine everywhere. And then you would, like, once you had maxed out your stats as an engineer, you would go fucking full-on Rambo medic. Hell yeah. The beans are cooked in lard, as they should be. So it's not vegan. Well, they can have vegan lard, which is harvested from people. The forest began to taper off as they climbed higher and higher up the mountain. The trees grew withered and twisted. There were mushrooms and rustgalls everywhere. The rain had slowed, and the stench of decay was rising all around them. Okay, so this is a part that I actually like. I like the idea of the forest becoming primeval and corrupted as they approach the RAPAXORIS. And I do like the idea of them encountering some adversity on the way there. I think the RAPAXORIS should represent an aberration, and that things should clearly be wrong. They should have like a foreboding sense of approaching the dungeon. So this is, while we're looking at this chapter and we're seeing this chapter is dog shit refried in lard. Everywhere where you have like a really shitty chapter, it means that you have a gigantic opportunity to improve the book. Like, right? Like if I was a reader and I picked it up on this chapter, I just thumbed to here, I'd be throwing the book out the fucking window. This is trash. Like corporate headquarters, just an aberration of nature. But so now we have the ability, and because we've done all this work previously, we've got characters that are enjoyable, right? So this is, we could consider building this into the POV of one of the characters that we already have there. So it'd be like more familiar. We could, like, the reader might wonder, like, I wonder what Yellow Hat would think about this whole fucking crazy Citadel of Doom that they're approaching. So potentially, as we're thinking about it, we might like consider, should we have used a different character here? Above, the clouds had grown dark. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, near enough they could feel it in their teeth. Okay, so the other thing that's happening in this chapter is that a big storm is coming on, and it's a storm similar to the storm, almost like divinely fueled, like the one that was pissing down on Rigel when he stole the chapter initially. That's not by accident, right? It's not by accident, and we want the storm to clearly be causing problems for El Shalah's party and helping Rigel's party. So Above, the clouds had grown dark. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, near enough they could feel it in their teeth. When they broke through the trees, they could see they were in the high country now. Among the tall old men of the shrine range. Okay, cool. So this was a bit of data that I was looking for. I did like, so this, I had forgotten what I call these fucking mountains. And then here we reveal that RAPAXORIS is the name of like the highest mountain in the shrine chain, which we need to go back and do some retconning, because there are a few places where I know I wanted to have the name of the mountains, and we could think about making it like something more fantasy. But I like the idea, the simplicity of shrine mountains, because if you think a lot of the text, the way that people talk in this thing, they don't use a bunch of like highfalutin elfy words and shit like that. It really is kind of simple. Like it's the Gray Key, that's where they all hang out, or like Dead Fish Dock or some horse shit like that. Most of the terms that we're using so far are either straight Latin derived, like RAPAXORIS, or they're very simple, and it's clear that like they're from the provenance of the common people. And I like that distinction right there, that we pump into like Latin derived terms when we talk about things like that wizards have obviously made up, but like a lot of like where they talk about the demons, they're like the high ones and the most high and all that like Rastafarian shit. I like the distinction between like the sort of vulgar vernacular and the specific names, and that's going to become like a big deal later on. So I like to keep that. So this is a spot where we can clearly establish like, hey, like fucking wizards call it the RAPAXORIS, but everybody just calls it High Mountain. I like High Mountain too because it lets us make like a bunch of weed jokes later on. Okay, so this is a part also that we'll keep. The undergrowth died, and they walked on bare stone. Here and there was a curious pillar of black, glassy stone rising from rubble. When they drew closer, they saw that they had once been trees. Piles of shattered black stones surrounded them, where stone branches and leaves had shattered and fallen to the ground. So, making some chicken tacos real quick. Hell yeah. So here, this is a part that should have like a lot of emotional impact for the reader. Like the whole forest has been petrified and something has shattered, like a lot of the trees. They've been turned into like obsidian and glass and so forth. We don't effectively convey that image in the current thing. Their roots still spread into the earth, and there were many of them bristling along the mountainside. A few were partly intact. El Shalah, and look, boom. Hey, why don't we just jump into the POV of a fucking character for no reason mid-chapter here? Oh, by the way, I just tweeted that I'm going to be hosting a remote Russian roulette tournament this DEF CON. And here's my idea for that tournament. Everybody who signs in onto that tournament has to, you can choose, you have to use a cylinder with 6 or less bullets in it. You can use a single cylinder. It has to be a revolver. No trick, whatever's there. And you know, it was the honor system, but you have to enter into a tontine. So if you lose the tournament, or win from your perspective, then all your worldly possessions go into the pool, and whoever emerges from the Russian roulette tournament as the winner gets all those possessions. And none of your fucking debts and child support, and keep that shit out of the tontine. Anyhow. Their roots still spread into the earth, and there were many of them bristling along the mountainside. A few were partly intact. The writing is so bad here. It's clear I've never edited this chapter at all. El Shalah remembered the words Arath had used to crystallize and shatter the fire breather. It was powerful, taxing sorcery. Something had done that to hundreds of trees, perhaps in a single powerful spell. Nothing grew here now. And then they spotted them. I sent this fucking manuscript to a publisher. What the fuck? And they looked at it. They didn't. Oh my god. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. I'm so fucking ashamed right here. This is terrible. The pair they'd chased upriver for leagues and leagues were just ahead of them, threading their way through the shattered glass trees. They were climbing over boulders and scrambling up rocks, making for the mouth of the cave, set into the sheer face of the cliff. 2 massive demons were carved into the rocks. Their wings formed the caved arch, and above the two, a great open eye was carved into the cliff. With rings within rings like a bullseye, the carvings were nearly 30 feet tall, and it was impossible not to fear they would come to life, that the great stone eye would blink and fix them with its awful gaze. The blighted forest, the thunderheads broiling overhead, and now these giant foreboding guardians. These were not good omens. Terrible. And then you can see where like the POV jumps to the other fucking party right here. You can't do that. So nowadays, when I write POV, anytime that I have a POV jump, I try to include a chapter break, right? If we don't have time for 2 different chapters. Fish and Rigel hesitated at the mouth of the cave, and the boy turned to look back and saw them. Fish turned around with him now, and they were looking down as they began to scale the rocky slope that led to the cave. From up there, Fish and Rigel could throw stones at the 4 pursuers, but instead they vanished into the cave. All gone. Everything in this is swapped to the intaglio descriptions. What the fuck did I mean by that? So I think intaglio is like a relief. I think it's like a design. Yeah. Oh, check out this intaglio. Hell yeah. Intaglio printmaking. Grooves can be less than a millimeter wide. Microtypography of a French post stamp. Oh, look how fucking amazing that is. It's from a banknote. Oh. But yeah, intaglio is not actually what they use there. Okay, so they made their way forward and found the cave was dark. Up ahead in the distance, a faint blue light was going. El Shalah hummed a quick succession of words, and a golden light sprang over her head. This needs to be like a much bigger deal because her ability to produce light is one of her primary contributions throughout the story. After that, El Shalah hummed a quick succession of words. That needs to be like a real deal. And it needs to show that it's taxing for her. She's just an apprentice. Like in this rewrite, her power level is coming down. So she... the walls were friezes, massive carvings that rose 30 feet high. They only saw glimpses, but everywhere there were scenes of war, bloodshed and chaos, stone intestines spilled from fallen men, and demon rose above them, profane and terrible. I like that, profane and terrible. Everything was angular, jagged, the perspective jarring and twisting. All of it stung their minds like salt in a wound. This is good to have. So we can salvage some of that right there. One of the core things that I want to have throughout the RAPAXORIS is the RAPAXORIS was not built by human beings, right? The RAPAXORIS was built by things that see reality very differently. They think different things are important. They perceive, like their vision is very different from the way that human beings perceive the world. They have the ability to like look between different planes of existence and perceive many of them simultaneously, right? So when you think about the art that they create and the sculptures that they think are compelling and so forth, one of the goals of this rewrite is to write them with the idea that these are like extraplanar beings that can see things that human beings cannot. And when people read the stuff that they're doing, it's unsettling. Well, I don't want to get too deep into spoilers there. These were not the works of men. They were running now, 1,000 battles whipping by on either side. That's going. There was a sound of rushing water, and they could see Fish, outlined in blue, standing before a bronze door 5 times as tall as him. A chasm yawned between them, 20 feet wide and bridged by a narrow stone arch. A long way beneath the arch, the underground river ran swiftly, disappearing into a low tunnel cut by the rot face. Fish held the orb high. It outshone her own light, painting everything a deep sapphire. So this is the moment where Fish is like holding up the gate orb. Potentially this chapter has to be from the perspective of El Shalah, because she would understand more of what was going on. Like to Stirs, this is all fucking like, what is all this horse shit? Like, this is creepy. To El Shalah, she has some understanding of what all this is. Yellow Hat might have an even deeper understanding. Like he would know more legends and lore and so forth this whole time. If we go back and tell this chapter through the lens of Fish, Fish is going to be like, I should remember all this. He's like got familiarity tugging at him and so forth. He's not the right spot to do the POV. We can do it through the lens of Rigel. Rigel is just a boy, right? Rigel he has within his character like fear, like things can hurt me. And Rigel is one of the principal characters in this scene that's doing the action. So we'll read through the whole thing before we figure out how to fix it. Fish's back was to them, but they could see him move as he shouted the words. The shadows shifted with every movement of his hand. He evoked every hissing, rasping word with all his might, straining to produce a lion's roar from a mouse's mouth. El Shalah recognized it at once, the black tongue of the Otherkin. All right, so when I wrote this, Otherkin, or whatever, had not become like Otherkin. That came up after, like, people like referring to their fucking fox selves and so forth. That came up later. And it's probably this Otherkin thing or whatever there. We just need to rename these. I think we need to, in the course of RAPAXORIS, we should rename this Otherkin there. I like the distinction between, like, everybody just calls them devils, but, themselves, they're like, we're not devils. Like, we're just different. And they should have, like, a little bit of this, like, allure, like, yeah, oh, no, I'm not here to fuck with you at all. Like, you can take a deal with me and so forth. And then when you suspend, like, your common sense and actually go along, you're like, oh, they really were devils all along. Like, there's a reason why people call them devils. But they need to come across as something where, oh, there's a crazy ASCII rolling by. It looks like a big ass. Oh shit, it's a big zero sun scrolling by on the screen. I'm loving it. Oh, that's fucking amazing, Funk Power. In the IRC channel, you can see this giant sun that Funk Power made. Oh, I'm loving it. It's the sun. Oh, Darius Stone, what up, bro? Oh my god, Darius Stone. We are trying to make some sense of this horse shit. This chapter is terrible. Yeah, we're rewriting a novel, and this chapter, I would have belted a kid with a ruler if he brought it to me in creative writing class. Oh, fucking ridiculous. Oh, and then Stratum's got a moon ASCII right after it. Hell yeah. I doesn't like that second. This all this shit is getting thrown out. Garbage. This is trash. Stop, El Shalah shouted on the other side of the platform, but Fish ignored her. And the strange words continued to issue from her mouth. Carved into the door was an enormous brass devil, the body of a perfect man, 30 feet tall, wicked horns rising from his brow and wings sweeping his back. The door spoke, and I want to take this away from the traditional imagery of devils in this rewrite. How do you carve into brass, bruv? Oh, you can actually fucking carve brass, by the way. I've done it. So the difference between, like, something carved in brass and something molded into brass is, like, when you're molding something, you have, like, these smooth lines and so forth. Carving has jagged fucking edges, but that's getting thrown out. Yeah, we're looking at this chapter, and then we're gonna rewrite the entire thing before we edit it. So all this shit is gone. The door spoke, roaring like a bonfire, and the whole cavern echoed the words back upon them. Again and again, it swept through them, got into their bones and hummed there. Oh my god. Their skin spasmed with disgust, and they cupped their hand over their ears, and they shuddered on, attainted by simply hearing the door speak. Yeah. Ugh. I'm fucking ashamed to say it, but this is my story that I wrote like 5 years ago, and I've spent the last 2 years, really 3 years, in a montage to get better at writing. So I would never do this nowadays. This is such. Yeah, I have 5 books published right now, and they're all significantly better than what you're reading right here. But I mean, that's part of the process, right? You don't start off fucking amazing with a story. You write a shitty rough draft and you revise it, and just this chapter needs heavy revising. Hold them, Fish croaked. Whatever he was doing with the orb, the effort had nearly finished him. Yay. Rigel looked at the 4 people across the chasm and wondered how he was. And now you can see the chapter has, like, slipped into Rigel POV. So say that I was an editor and this is just, like, flopped onto my fucking desk from somebody. I would have already told them, rewrite this entire chapter, stick to one point of view, try to focus on, like, the emotional feeling, because to the reader, this is meant to be like, oh shit, it's the fucking RAPAXORIS, dude. Look at these demons and shit. You have to have, like, some feeling of awe entering into the chapter. It has to be fucking atmospheric. So we really fucked the dog here. So here, Revel draws his sword and charge, running across the slick and narrow platform, but Rigel was there. The armored fighter surged towards him, and Rigel played his ace, pronoun confusion, a fistful of sand that caught Revel right in the eyes. With a howl of pain, Revel swung the sword, a flat strike that would have cleaved Rigel in two if he hadn't ducked very low, very quickly. Rigel rose under it, springing with all of his force, and caught Revel off balance and sent him flying into the chasm. Right? I don't believe that little ass Rigel can knock Revel into the fucking chasm right there. Where do I draw from? Something like the Count of Monte Cristo in space. Well, we wrote the Count of Monte Cristo in space. Yeah, if you go to my website, it's about a prison break in fucking outer space. So, but it's a little bit different. If you go to zachzyz.com. Oh, this is me. I was just trying to counterfeit a little earlier. Yeah, that's the other thing we do on this stream. We counterfeit money. So you go to my website, up at the top of the fucking screen, and then go to the zeros right here. You can see my new book that's coming out. The book is much better than what you're reading on the screen because I wrote it last year, and I've gone through that fucking montage. But this here is Zeros. It is a story about prisoners at a boot camp and a space station who are being drilled for a suicide mission. I don't know if I describe the Count of Monte Cristo as a prison break. Well, it's definitely like part of it is a prison break. And definitely like a lot of the drama within deals with him being imprisoned, but it's more of like a revenge story when it really comes down to it. I'm trying to think if I have a revenge story. I don't have a revenge. I should do a fucking revenge story because I love revenge. Yeah, we do not. Zeros is more about boot camp than it is about revenge. Though he does get revenge on some motherfuckers in that story. But he's quickly filled with remorse. And I think a big part of Taken isn't dwelling on the remorse that you get from revenge. Economic tactics and fake boats and shit like that. He's a fucking G. I should reread that. I haven't. In fact, I am going to reread that. It's been years and years and years since I've read it. All right, so this is a spot that during the rewrite I knew that I wanted to focus on right there. The Revel character needs to have some reluctance to fucking slay a child, right? We wrote it up earlier. He didn't want to do it before. He doesn't want to do it now. So it would be good for him to show some fucking restraint right here. So it wasn't meant to be a novel. It was in the newspaper so people would subscribe to them. Well, a lot of writing used to be that way, like shit like David Copperfield and like even what like a lot of people call the first like real modern novel, Don Quixote. It was originally all that shit used to be serialized, and they would just put out little pieces at a time, and people would pay like X and X, just because the infrastructure wasn't there to like print big books. Don Quixote is shit. Fuck off. That shit is brilliant. Yeah, no, you're reading the wrong fucking translation if you think it's shit. There are some translations that are dog shit, but it's boring. I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, it's not written. It's not written for people who are in their 20s. By the way, like if you're young, it ain't for you, right? That book is written. Which makes sense because at the time, the people who were reading would be older for the most part. It wasn't something that young people were doing. It's written for old people who have been through some shit and have like more time to like appreciate what's going on there. So yeah, eventually you will get to a point in your life where you can read Don Quixote and it's fucking amazing. Like I remember when I was in fucking like high school or something like that, I thought the Iliad was boring. Right? Because one, I was reading like a shitty translation where they were trying to rhyme, and two, like I hadn't been to Greece, I didn't know any of that shit. And then last year I read the fucking Iliad, and I was spellbound. It was fucking amazing. So it's just one that it might come on you later. Yeah, the Iliad is amazing. They said this about hummus to be, bruv, but I isn't getting into it. Who are you? Who are you fucking LARPing as? Darius, whatever. Spathywall agrees. Don Quixote is rambling trash. It's supposed to be rambling. It's about an old fucking crazy dude rambling. Literally, that's what you're signing on for right there. Ugh. Give me Game of Thrones any day. Pick any chapter. Some fucker's gonna die or get raped. Hell yeah. That's nice, Spathy. I've been trolled. All right. Rigel rose under it, springing with all of his force. The nobleman's scream ended in a splash, and Rigel nearly followed him down. He windmilled his arms, hard to keep from falling off. The other three were wide-eyed. Just like that, they were down a man. El Shalah began to invoke something complicated. Stirs had his hook out. He was advancing on Rigel, taking measured, careful steps, not rushing headlong like the fool noble. He had his hook and his knife out. Revel only had... Look at this fucking confusion right here between Rigel and Revel right here. It's all throughout the book. The Dekuk... So here he faces off with Stirs. So it might be that I do like the idea of Revel is too chicken shit to murder a child, and Stirs the hook is like, let me get at that boy. I'll open him up like a can of tuna. Though tuna is not canned in this world. So Rigel leaps off the platform into the chasm, an instant ahead of... Why don't you just fucking turn around and run? Have I got better from repetition, or have you got any resource books that I recommend? So yeah, I have a book on how to finish novels, because I've finished 5. Actually, we're at like 7 or 8 novels at this point, but 5 of them are in print only. So I recommend Elements of Style by Strunk, just keeping in mind that it's written for nonfiction writers, and like doesn't all apply to fiction writers, but it's like the core basis for what you should think about writing. It really is strong to do. Ray Bradbury's book, Zen and the Art of Writing, which his idea of how you should write and mine are very similar. Like I learned a lot from him. Those two things, and then you should probably take like a fucking writing class or something like that after you do those two things, and get involved in a group that uses like the Clarion method or something like that. Because otherwise you have to spend, I spent like 20 years learning to do this myself. And I can see that even like 15 years into it, when I was writing this horseshit garbage. This is the worst chapter in the book, by far. And it's the most important chapter. There's all this action happening. El Shalah finished her spell, and a spear of crackling white light struck Fish in the back. It should have left the crater there the size of a melon, but instead it drained away to nothing. The leaden chain around his neck grew red hot. Blah, 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 blah. As the Mage Banes followed her spell, El Shalah's gave... Okay, that's going to go. El Shalah's dragging herself forward. The current was strong, so Revel fell in, and then she cast a spell to keep him alive. That's gone. Okay, so we don't have to keep torturing ourselves with reading through this, because I'm quickly losing patience with this whole thing. Cheers, fam. Yeah, honestly, it's worth your time, but just don't think that you're going to make any fucking money about it. If you want to make money with writing, don't even bother with novels or short stories. Like right now, most of the money in writing is in doing screenplays and treatments for video games and that kind of thing. You can just do a rewrite. Oh, we're doing a rewrite day. Believe me, we're doing an entire fucking... This is another one of those ones where I'm just going to spend a fucking week rewriting this nonsense. It's a big chapter. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to pause, rewrite this entire chapter, and do whatever. But I'm going to use this time to read through the entire thing, and we're going to think about how we can fix the chapter, what POV it should be in, what action we want to keep, and what we want to cut. The voice of the demon roared once more in the cavern, and they trembled to hear it. Fish lifted the gate orb high, and the light was brilliant, then dazzling, and then it was as if he held a star, blinding and terrible. Stirs threw up a hand to protect his eyes, but it meant nothing. The light went right through them and drove out everything. All was a scourging, intolerable blue light. I like this, but it could be better written. His arms and legs would not obey. His thoughts were broken, and only the fragmented notions that it was all... So there we go to, like, Stirs' POV. What the fuck? Found my swords, so be right back. Nice. I feel like Spathywah was just, like, waiting for his fucking Viagra to kick in that whole time. A scream was uncoiling in his chest, but there was no force to drive it out. It drained away before he died of it. Through tears, Fish could see Fish slumping against the orb light by the candle now. On the other side of the massive door, the bronze panels were rumbling as they split apart, leaving only a colossal brass demon between them and the corridor beyond. For a moment, Stirs expected the statue to reach down and take the orb from Fish, but it just loomed there, as if it had never moved, never spoken those black words. Fish was rising now, shivering as if he'd been drained out of a frozen lake. Fish, what did you do? Stirs called across the chasm, his voice small, his ears still ringing from the thundering voice of the devil. I'm going inside. Are you going to stop me? Fish asked. He turned and drew his blade. His eyes glinted in the faint blue light. Stirs looked down at El Shalai, who was motionless, at Yellowhead, who was unarmed and staring mystified at the brass demon, and down into the chasm that had swallowed their fighter. Fish stopped shivering the instant he drew the blade. And then, nope, Stirs said, backing carefully across the torch. So this is a note that we could keep, where they confront each other, and Stirs is just like, I'm not fighting that fucking guy. He just talked with devils and opened up a thing. He could see something stirring in the old swordsman, the lift of his head, the sure way he held the blade. Here was a man standing on the verge of greatness. He would kill Stirs without a thought. I like that. That is something that we can keep. Cool. All right. Well, at least that chapter's not too fucking long. All right, so it's about 8 pages that we desperately need to fucking fix. It's terrible. Okay, so this is about 2,300 words, and it's trying to do a lot of heavy lifting in the story, right? It's trying to... In fact, this is probably, if we really want to think about this, this is probably best broken up into 2 separate chapters, right? We have spent, let's see how many different chapters we have spent in Pursuit. Okay. All right, so let's say that they actually start rowing here. Okay, so we've spent the last 3 chapters talking about this pursuit up the river, and then we come to 1.11, and there needs to be a payoff for spending 3 chapters on something. It has to be more specific, it has to be more fulfilling to different characters, and they need a chance to display like some of their unique talents and abilities and so forth right there. So we spent a chapter on Yellowhat, we spent a chapter on whatever. So... and I like the Yellowhat chapter that we just got to. But the Yellowhat is like kind of a somber chapter, right? And the transition is very abrupt right here between the 2 structures. So what you might think about there is breaking this up into 2 separate chapters, though like it's right around 7 pages, which is where we want to be. So... we need something to indicate to the reader, like, hey, it's time for a sea change, right? You were reading a story about, like, camping and stuff like that. Now you're reading a story about a dungeon. And for the rest of the book, it's just going to be a story about a dungeon. So I like the parts where it's, like, leading in, like the petrified forest and all that, although it needs to be rooted, and it's a good thing. Maybe we can have something about how, like, as they're approaching, it gets creepier and creepier, and then, so Stirs would be a good place to have him be, like, fucking out of sorts. It really does lend itself towards Stirs. All right, so we're going to rewrite this from Stirs POV. I don't think we've written any other chapters in the book that are Stirs POV, but we're going to have, so I think that's probably the way to do it. Because from Stirs' perspective, the entry into the RAPAXORIS is fucking terrifying, and just using his point of view as a tool is going to be much more edifying and satisfying. So we lose the part about El Shalai, like crystallizing trees and so forth, but she could say something about it, right? She could be like I saw a Wrath do this to one dude, and it's like hard to do. All right. So, and she doesn't get to use her Star Lance anymore. We're retconning, we're dropping the power level there. And then Stirs, he's kind of a likable character, but he is definitely still willing to gut a child, so that that character distinction needs to be made with care. So I'd say I'm going to start rewriting this and try to make it more foreboding and interesting, and like have the pace, just like let the pace change a little bit as the reader is coming towards the mountain. Like they start to see more things that are out of sorts. Like it's maybe more of a struggle to actually climb up to the high mountain. I want to say that they don't actually see, um, like they have the sense that they're on the trail, but I don't want them to find Rigel and Fish until like they find them in this chamber. We're gonna retcon or rewrite a little bit how that chamber is set up, because I had like a clear vision of how it looks in my mind, but it doesn't come across in the story. So the demon at the gate actually has a name, Then and Then, which we could put into it right there. And this is the first like actual devil that we put into the story. So I think in terms of like what I'm seeing in structure is through the eyes of Stirs the Hook, we see them pursuing. We show them like actually climbing up the mountain. We see like the storm beginning to happen, like the fear that they'll be swept away and so forth on the river by like a flash flood or something like that. So when it starts to like really storm, potentially what we can do is we can have them be like, hey, we need to get off of this river. And they have like, like a flash flood could come rumbling down this one. So potentially Yellow Hat would have like the woodcraft to be like, yeah, you can't be on a river when there's a thunderstorm in the mountains. You'll get fucking swept. And it could be that they come off of the river then, and that's where they discover the hidden canoe, right? They're like, oh, well, shit, lucky us, right? Though it's a little pat for them to just fucking discover it right there. Maybe they find another obelisk or something like that, and like, hey, let's pull off of the river and make camp here. And then they discover the canoe, and they're like, oh shit, it's time. We don't have time to fucking rest. We need to do this whole thing. So there, I want to hold on. I know that AAA only chats in the thing. Reading some random court tops. During the lunch, plaintiff again allegedly began joking around with Mr. Williams about various items on the menu. One item that drew their attention was a big meat burrito with Chihuahua cheese. Miss Soldevilla felt the discussion was culturally insensitive and informed plaintiff that her family originated in Chihuahua, Mexico. Ugh, that's wretched. Okay. So yeah, potentially we can have. I like that this is just a brainstorming day. Like first we were brainstorming the video game, and now I'm brainstorming this fucking idea. So let's have another fucking Septar obelisk, and this one is more. Here could be a spot where Yellow Hat like reveals that he can read the obelisks, right? And the others can't, and I can use that later on, right? Yellow Hat might be the only person who can like read Sectar in this thing. So it might give him a little bit more reason to be in the party, because later this crazy speech is going to be like a whole thing. So I like that. So let's make it another. Here, let me take some fucking notes. Yeah, this is the time to do revision notes. Okay, so make stirs POB. Okay, so we want to smooth the transition into the foreboding RAPAXORIS right there. We want to have more visceral and like good descriptions, like what we have is shit. Okay. So then we're going to have them pull off at an obelisk, being like, oh, whatever. And then they find that the boat has been their boat has been abandoned because they have set off on foot for High Mountain. We could. So potentially, you can titillate with the idea that I thought I saw something in the distance, but it could have been I saw something move. Maybe it was just a bear or something. And the stars are like, a bear? Oh shit! So I really like that one. Oh shit! I wish either Spathy or Logic or somebody were active at the moment right here. So if you're with me, holla. But I think everybody's eating tacos and shining their swords at the moment. This is a spot where I do want to spitball some of this shit. But all right, so let's bring in like that Septar obelisk thing right there. We can have one that's more elaborate that in no uncertain terms says like, hey, fuck off. Like, you don't want to come here. So that's one thing that we want to do. We want to foreshadow their meaning. We want it to be clear that they're not that far ahead at this point. Like they're very close with each other. We're going to get rid of the spider, which is, you know, if you're going to have a fucking giant spider get slain, the reader at least needs to see what's going on. So that's going to get cut out there. So one of our problems is that, like with all this urgency, we don't have time to. Okay, and so there is a fight on a like stone walkway or whatever. I want to make sure that we're not ripping off Tolkien right there. We can rip off other authors, but he's too big. So I want to make sure that we're not doing that. We do not have time for the involved description of the reliefs in the walls and so forth. So we're going to get around that by using Yellow Hat as kind of our lever, because he's just like, he's like fucking. The nice thing about Yellow Hat being addicted to fucking drugs and spaced out and so forth is he gives us an excuse to like stop and just be like, what the fuck? It's a great blessing to the story to have somebody who is unreliable in that way, because they don't all have to like move logically and do whatever. So that's something that we can like lean on in the course of the story and do some serious work with right there. Yeah, the fight with the Balrog. Yeah, we want to avoid like a Gandalf the Grey type situation. I should really read those fucking books. All right, so hold on. I'm gonna get the Count of Monte Cristo and the Lord of the Rings. Those are the two that I'm gonna put on my reading list after Blindness. So Blindness, then the Count of Monte Cristo, then Lord of the Rings. I'm trying to read Blindness right now. It's hard. Yeah. Do not like the way that he writes. Re-envision the fight on the stone bridge. We want to make sure not to go too Tolkien. Okay, so At the Stone Bridge, we want to make it clear that Revel is defeated not by Rigel's trickery, but by his desire to not attack a boy. And it would be great if I could somehow make it mechanically to where Rigel is cornered, right? And doesn't have the option of going backwards. Because like when I think about this scene, I'm like, why doesn't he just run back to Fish? You know, Fish has the fucking sword and everything. So we need to I need to think a little bit about how that bridge is. Because this could be like a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be written this way. It could be like a spiral staircase leading up to something. It could be that it's like a spiral with like little things branching off of it and so forth that leads to a whole thing. Right now, it's just set up as like a very typical like fantasy. Like got this big chamber and this massive door sitting in front of it and so forth. I want to do like a little tune-up work here and come up with something like a little bit more interesting. So. Okay, so we're going to diversify our demons a little bit because I will tell you in the story there are not like a lot of there are like a few different characters where they have like horns and shit like that. Some of like the classical demon signifiers and so forth. But the bulk of the creatures that we see in here have like very very different. Like one's a fucking squid, one's a giant ape, and so forth. So the monstrous things. Are quite diverse and represent like significant speciation within this other half of the world right there. So, yeah, we got to come up with a new name for them, and do that. All right. And we're going to foreshadow. I want to foreshadow the fact that really there's something assisting Fish and Rigel throughout this whole thing. The fact that they've gotten there, they're really like good fortune is shining on them, and so forth. This is another place where we want to have things that should work against them fail, and so forth. Okay, so cool. These are some good goals to make there. So I think we're going to write this through the lens of Stirs the Hook. I'm going to try that way. I may have to try it a few different things. We're going to show Revel being undone by his humanity. Both Revel and Rigel need to fall off of this fucking bridge for the way that the story works. But we need to write it in a little bit better of a way. And I think I can still do that. So also Fish is triumphant against the other three remaining people. I think at some point El Shalah still tries to like blast him, and he's saved by wearing a necklace that's like very similar to the one that Rigel used at the beginning, like a mage bane made out of snake lead. Snake lead plays a role later in the story too. So it's a good spot to really delve in deep about how El Shalah is like, all right, here's my moment. I'm going to blast this nigga. And then she gets stymied by this fucking dispel magic snake lead, which was brought up in Arcanist as well. But it has to be clear that that's Fish's only. He only has the one necklace, and it fucking melts away, and it burns him in the process. And then after that, he's going to be at the mercy of anybody else who hits him with a spell or some shit like that throughout the course. And we have to. So essentially, what we want to do in terms of structure is like Fish needs to be like a mini boss here, and all of them need to take a crack at him. And really, he should probably fucking belt El Shalah, and Yellow Hat and Stirs have to just be too chicken shit to do anything about it. Is the D&D stream set in Rapazoris and using tarot cards? We are using tarot cards, but it's not set in the Rapazoris, but it's planned to be a similar creepy delve. This one is more of an ocean type adventure. There are like pirates and shit like that. So yeah, it's not set in Rapazoris, but we can certainly do a Rapazoris delve later on. But it'd be good to get more of the rewrite underway so that we're not retconning things in the other stream here. So we foreshadow the meddling of the force that led them there. But pirates definitely want to do every delve. Oh yeah, yeah. There's the campaign is set up around delving, so we're probably going to get closer to the delve in story 2, but it might be like 3 or 4 by the time that we actually get to the delving part. There, we're still in a little bit of setup. But yeah, I have a game plan for where we're headed next on it. There, shout out to Zartep, by the way, where he's like doing a write up of each adventure and like made notes on the map and everything. That's fucking amazing. But yeah, it's not fucking Dungeons and Dragons if you don't have a dungeon. Reserving my spot in any D&Ds. Oh yeah, well you're doing well so far. Yeah, you've been like a wonderful like a good member of the party, and I got no complaints. So doing good. Yeah, I especially liked in the last adventure where Logic was like trying to negotiate with Big Earl or whoever the fuck the butcher, and where we were able to have say his backstory, like be like, he's that guy that was fucking my chickens or whatever. It was dope. I like that he like triumphed and was able to convince the town people not to fucking attack the Legion. Okay. So here we want Fish to be kind of like a mini boss, like the first boss that they face here, and he is going to soundly defeat them, right? They're not up to the task of dealing with this old man. It needs to feel realistic, not like he's just imbued with like some fucking power cosmic or whatever. And he's already in a pretty good spot. Like he's a skilled swordsman, he's tough. He knows what's going on, so I would like him to rely like a little bit more on his wits to defeat these people than just be like, oh, touched by the finger of God or some Deus Ex Machina right here. I like that it capitalized Wiley. All right, so let's think once more about what our goals are, because this chapter needs a complete rewrite. Make stirs poverties. We're gonna make the stirs the POV. I think that's a good choice there. We want to smooth our transition. I'm going to do like a lot of work on just talking about the entrance to the Rapazoris, because I like reading that description, I couldn't fucking feel what was happening, and you have to feel it. So 3 want to show a sense of urgency in their pursuit, which we tried to do, but it doesn't really work. I like the idea of them pulling off at an obelisk, fearing a flash flood, and then just discovering this canoe has been hidden, because I don't like the idea of them tying the canoe up in a tree where anybody can see it. That's just kind of tempting fate, right? So I like the idea that they like pull off the river and hide, and maybe they could even like find the trail of them dragging a canoe. I like the idea of having them sight something in the distance but not being 100% sure. And this is a good spot to say who has the sharpest eyes in the story. We can have El Shala. We could think about the vision of the different characters, right? We could have El Shala be slightly nearsighted to drop down her power level a little bit. We could have her be the sharpest eyes because she's the youngest. We could have Steers the Hook be like fucking eagle-eyed right here. We could have Revel be the one that spots it out. So one of the things that will happen later in the story is that the idea of vision and seeing and perspective will become very important for Revel. So it's possible that he should be the one that like spots it, he can see something that the others can't see. I think that's the way to do it. Okay. So this is a good spot also to have Yellow Hat be entranced by the walls, and we can just set his like drug level thing. We're gonna change the way that the fight on the stone bridge goes. Um, what I want, instead of like he is trying to like set off the orb and they're desperate to stop him, they find they catch up with him there. I like the idea that both uh, yeah, let's fucking we could potentially have Stirs do something uh like take Rebel or he could take Rigel hostage, right? He could like snap him up with his fucking maybe like he hooks him or something like that, and he like holds the knife to his throat, and he says, "I'll fucking kill him. Drop the orb." And we could have Fish be like, "I don't give it. Fucking kill him. I got what I wanted." Um, and that could lead to some acrim. Okay, so yeah. Okay, cool. I like that a lot. I like that we get into a situation where Stirs tries to use Revel as a bargaining chip, and Fish is like, and I like that one there. Okay, cool. So I think that we've done a lot of good work in terms of like brainstorming how to fix this chapter. It needs to do a lot of heavy lifting. So I'm not sure if I will. I may just try to do the rewriting on stream and just not take like a lot of comments and commentary there. In the past, that's been kind of difficult for me, but I also don't want to use like a week off of fucking stream as an excuse to like rewrite. So I may just try to rewrite on stream and just not pay as much attention to chat, which is difficult for me. Yeah. So yeah, if you ever feel like oh, this ZYZ guy, I'll never be as good as him. You can look at this fucking chapter and just realize that even I am going to have my chapters that are absolute fucking dog shit, and there's no excuse for this. This is garbage. I can't believe I fucking sent this to agents. Awful. Wretched. But you know, like to get to the point where I could even realize that this was fucking hot trash, I had to do a lot of work. So, oh, that's physically painful to me just to look at this fucking chapter. Yeah, there's no almost no like redeeming values. The idea of what I want to have happen there is strong in my mind, and as you're writing and working on stories and so forth, it's very easy to get seduced by the idea of what you're trying to say and not actually look at what you're saying, right? Because I think this is a spot where I'm like very excited as I'm writing it. I'm like, oh, so cool! Like I finally get to bring them together, and like, and you're just, it's like you're outrunning your headlights, right? Like your vision of what you want to see is like shining against the wall, but what you're like actually seeing is just like 2 inches in front of your face because you're so fixated on where your mind has gone that you're not looking at what's actually on the page. And I think that's what's happened here. It's something that happens all the time to younger writers where their vision is just bigger than the reality of what they put onto the page. And as we're doing this editing and rewriting, like I'm very concerned, what's actually here? What is the reader actually getting out of this? And yeah, it just needs a ton of work. But yeah, I had a fun. It's actually, you know, it was an easy day where I just have to admit that I'm a fucking idiot and brainstorm on how to fix it and so forth. We didn't have to do any actual work. So shout outs for joining the brainstorming session right there. I'm going to attempt to do a rewrite over the next several days. And during a rewrite, also, you're not eligible for points in here. I would have given out points. I should have said here. During rewrites, I don't give out points for language, but I do give out points for good ideas and for people who catch me in an error or who catch problems in the reality there. So you just like we can't focus on grammar and stuff during the rewrite. What we'll probably do is do a rewrite, then we'll do an edit of the rewrite where we have a chance to get those comma points and all that so forth. So rewrite, edit, then on to the next chapter. So I can see a shaky path in front of us to get into the RAPAXORIS. But really, we're now into the part of the book where we can see what the fucking problem is and why this book didn't sell, like right away. This is, and usually like I'm like looking down on writers who write like just pulpy, like schlocky horseshit. But this is worse than fucking Robert Jordan. Really and truly, like I have no business to criticize anybody if I'm trying to sell this kind of horseshit. I would never let this kind of thing get into print. And I'm embarrassed a little bit that I have to stream it, to tell you the truth, because normally I would try to get things in a better shape before there. Yeah, there's no growth without like the sobering realization, like that. Oh, you fucking suck. That's so bad. I should try to have that realization about my radio show too, but like one fucking ego crushing at a time, I guess. Oh, well, I'm like a very different person from what I was when I wrote this. You can tell that this is the piece where it's like 5+ years old and has seen no improvement. And probably it was just like every time I've come back for like an edit or a rewrite, I'm like, let's do this later. This is hard. I don't know how to fucking fix that. Well, now you can see like that was the part of the Lemon Maybe stream that was really exciting for me, was like seeing like, this is bullshit. And now I know why it's bullshit. And now I know how to fix it, right? And I know, like right away, we're like thinking about the tools in our kit that we can use. Like now we can use like basic things about characters. We start thinking about like what's something that can make this character this way. Like what can we do in terms of tools of point of view? How can we smooth our transition? We're thinking more, what is the reader feeling? What's effective? And it is a good feeling to be able to look back. And the nice thing about it, it's almost like a fucking time machine where you can go back and relive junior high, right? Like this book is like kind of my fucking sophomore year at high school. And now I can go back and like be like, hey, idiot, become somebody's friend before you ask them to the dance, you know? Like, hey, retard, don't get in a car with those people. Like, those aren't actually your friends. And, all right. Well, anyhow, good work. And thank you for your help. Their logic and Spathy. Well, I'm definitely interested in your idea for a game. I don't know how much time either of us has to like actually work on something like that, but I would definitely participate, at least in a writing aspect. But also like, don't sleep on the design abilities of old Zach Z Wisey. But yeah, what you might want to think about is there like there's a like off the shelf Civilization game or Civ 5 game that you have there? How hard would it be? Because like I'm interested in the idea. And all right, I gotta deal with some live issues. All right, so even though we did no work, I think this is an instance where I knew that this chapter was going to be a problem, and I think this planning will pay huge dividends. So everybody have a good day. We're doing the show tonight, and then yeah, I think it's almost the end of the fucking month. Good luck.